Mara Voss had worked the breakfast shift at Kessler's Diner for 3 years, and in that time she had learned 2 things about people. The first was that everyone, no matter how important they believed themselves to be, looked a little lost when they were hungry. The second was that the ones who never said please were always the ones who needed the most help. She was carrying a tray of coffee cups toward table 7 when her manager, Dennis, stopped her near the kitchen door. He was sweating through his collar, which he only did when something had gone wrong. "The lodge called," he said. "Their catering person got sick. They need someone to bring food over and serve it. Private event. Big group." Mara looked at her section. 4 tables, all full, all waiting. "I have a shift. I'll cover your tips," Dennis said. "They're paying triple." She looked at him for a moment. Then she untied her apron, tied it again, and said, "Give me the address." The Kessler Lodge sat at the edge of town where the trees got thick and the road turned to gravel. Mara had driven past it 100 times, but had never been inside. She loaded the catering van with trays of food, drove out alone, and found the service entrance around the back. The hallway inside was long and poorly lit. She could hear voices, many of them, low and layered, the way a crowd sounds before a meeting starts. She balanced the tray on one arm, pushed through the nearest door, and walked directly into the center of the largest room she had ever seen. 200 people stood around a long stone table. Every single one of them went silent the moment the door opened. Mara looked at the room. The room looked at Mara. She walked to the table, set the tray down carefully, and said, "Sorry, the hallway is a maze." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. She noticed, in a distant and practical way, that these were not ordinary people. They were too still, too aware. The air in the room felt different, the way air feels before a storm, heavy and waiting. At the head of the table stood a man who was clearly in charge of everything. He was tall in a way that was difficult to process all at once. Dark hair, eyes the color of winter water. He wore no special clothing, no crown, nothing to mark him, and yet every single person in the room was angled toward him the way plants angle toward sunlight. He didn't need to be marked. He simply was. He looked at Mara. Then he laughed. It was not a mean laugh. That was almost worse. It was a genuine, surprised laugh. The kind that escapes before a person can decide whether to let it out. Like she was the most harmless, most unexpected thing he had seen in years. The room followed. A ripple of laughter, careful and directed. Mara picked up her empty tray. She looked at the man at the head of the table for exactly 3 seconds. "I'll see myself out," she said. She walked back through the door. She did not hurry. Her footsteps were even and quiet all the way down the long hallway and out into the cold night air. She sat in the van for a moment before starting the engine. She was not angry. She was not embarrassed. She was trying to understand why, in the moment he looked at her, her heart had done something it had never done before. Not fear, not attraction, something older than both of those things, something that felt like recognition. She started the van and drove home. Her apartment was above the hardware store on Birch Street. She lived alone, which she had always preferred. She came home that night, sat at the kitchen table, and realized she was still wearing the apron. She untied it, set it on the chair next to her, stared at it for a while. Outside, the town was quiet. A dog barked somewhere. A car passed. She should have been tired. She had been on her feet since 6 in the morning, but her mind would not settle. It kept returning to the same point, the way a tongue returns to a sore tooth. The room, the silence, the man, the way his heartbeat had jumped before the laugh started. She had heard it, clearly, and from 20 feet away, through all that crowd noise and all that silence. She had heard the exact moment his body responded to something, and the laugh had come 1 full second after. She told herself she had imagined it. She went to bed. She did not sleep well. 3 days later, she found the mark. She was getting ready for work, standing in the bathroom under the white ceiling light, and she saw it on her collarbone. Bone white, small, the shape of a wolf in mid-stride, perfectly formed, like it had always been there, and she had simply failed to notice it before. She stared at it for a long time. "Well," she said to herself quietly, "that's a thing." She found a roll of gauze in the medicine cabinet, covered it, and went to work. They came in on a Tuesday, 2 days after that. 2 men, large and quiet, who sat in the corner booth and ordered coffee they did not drink. Mara refilled their cups 3 times without being asked. She had a sense about customers. These 2 were not here for the coffee. On her 4th pass, one of them spoke. "The king requests your presence." Mara had her order pad in her hand. She wrote those words down, tore off the slip, slid it across the table to him. "Tell him I'm on shift until 9, she said. Then she went to refill table 3. She did not look back at them, but she did notice, as she moved through the diner, that her hand was steady and her breathing was even, and she could not entirely explain why, given that her life appeared to be doing something extremely unusual. She kept the pen. She went at 9:15, still in her uniform, because she had not gone home first. The address they had left on the back of the coffee receipt led her to a building on the north end of town she had always thought was a private law office. The man was inside alone. No court, no crowd, no one to perform for. He was standing near the window with his hands in his pockets, looking out at the street, and when she came in, he did not look like a king. He looked like someone who had been awake for a very long time, thinking about something he did not want to think about. He turned when he heard her come in. She pulled out a chair, sat down, and said, "You have until I finish this coffee. I found it on your secretary's desk." He looked at the cup in her hand, then he sat down across from her. He told her. He told her in the plain, direct way of a man reading a verdict he had not written. He told her about the ancient wolf spirit, a force so old that most of his people believed it had passed out of the world entirely. It had not chosen a vessel in 400 years. The last vessel had changed the course of his people's entire history. The spirit did not choose humans. It had never, in all the recorded accounts, chosen a human. He said that last part carefully, not unkindly, like he was hoping the facts would disprove what was in front of him. The gauze on her collarbone burned. She did not look down. Neither did he. "You were afraid," she said. "Before you laughed, you were afraid first." He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he said. She nodded slowly. She finished the coffee. She stood up. "I'll need to know what this means," she said. "All of it. Every part. Not tonight, but soon." She walked to the door. "Mara." She stopped. She did not turn around. "I am sorry," he said, "for the laugh." She stood there for a moment, one hand on the doorframe. "I know," she said. Then she left. She did not sleep well that night either, but she had begun to feel that sleep was a smaller concern than she had previously rated it. The mark on her collarbone had changed. It was warmer now. When she pressed 2 fingers against the gauze in the dark, she could feel a faint pulse there that was not her own heartbeat, something patient, something waiting. Her mother had told her, when she was 9 years old, that she was not special. She had said it without cruelty, the way people state facts they believe are helpful. "You are not special, Mara. You are ordinary, and that is fine, and you should build a life around that truth." Mara had believed her. She had built her life carefully and honestly and without expectation, and she had found, most days, that this was enough. She lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. She wondered what her mother had been measuring. It happened on a Thursday morning, at 6 a.m., in the parking lot of the diner. She was unlocking her car when she heard the footsteps behind her. She turned around in the same motion, the key still in her hand, and the man standing 10 feet away was not someone she recognized. Large, deliberate, he had been waiting. He took one step toward her. And something inside Mara Voss, something very old and very enormous, that had been patient for longer than she could understand, opened its eyes. She did not move. She did not speak. She simply looked at him. He stopped walking. His face changed. Something in his body made a decision that his mind had not yet caught up with, and he took a step back, then another. Then he turned and ran. Mara stood very still in the parking lot for a while after he was gone. Then she walked to the curb and was sick. Then she stood up, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and went inside to start the coffee. Because she had the breakfast shift and table 2 always came in at 6:15, and they liked their eggs before they sat down. Caelum walked into the diner at 7:03. She saw him come through the door. He sat at the counter, not a booth, which she noted. The counter meant he was not trying to take up space. He folded his hands on the surface and waited. She brought him coffee without being asked. He looked at the gauze on her collarbone. It was showing above her collar today. She had not bothered to adjust it. He looked at her face. "Parking lot," she said simply. "I know," he said. "We handled it." She nodded. She turned to check on table 4. "Mara." She stopped. "I laughed," he said. "In that room. In front of all of them. And you walked out like—" "I know what I did," she said. "I need you to understand that I was not laughing at you." His voice was careful, controlled, like a man who did not often need to explain himself and was finding the process difficult. "I was laughing because I was afraid," she said. "Yes." She turned and looked at him directly. "I know," she said. "I heard it." He was quiet for a moment. Something shifted in his expression, not quite surprise, but the adjustment a person makes when they realize the situation is different from what they had assumed. "You heard my heartbeat," he said. From across the room, she picked up the coffee pot. "Before the laugh, your heart went first." She refilled his cup. "That was the moment I knew something was wrong with me, or right with me. I'm still working out which." He wrapped both hands around the cup. "There is a council meeting in 3 days," he said. "They will want to see you." "Will they laugh?" He looked up at her. "No," he said quietly. "They will not." She looked at him for a long moment. He looked back. Neither of them looked away, and it was not a competition. It was something else. The kind of looking that happens between two people who have both felt the same enormous thing and have not yet decided what to do about it. "Come back tonight," she said, "after closing. Bring whatever documents or history or whatever it is you people carry around. I want to understand what's inside me before I walk into any room full of your counsel." He nodded. She went back to work. Her shift ended at 4. She cashed out her tips, wiped down the counter, and stood at the hook near the kitchen door where her apron lived. She untied it. She held it for a moment. Canvas and strings, and 3 years of coffee stains, and the faint smell of maple syrup that never fully washed out. She had worn it every shift. She had brought it home every night. It was the most ordinary object she owned. She hung it on the hook. She left it there. She walked out into the afternoon light, sharp and clear and cold in the way of very early spring, and the town looked the same as it always had. The hardware store, the grain elevator at the far end of Main Street, the water tower with the faded name of the town painted on it in letters that were peeling now. Everything the same. And inside her collarbone, patient and warm and old beyond counting, something waited. She had been told her whole life that she was ordinary. She had believed it. She had built herself around that belief carefully and without complaint, and she had not been wrong to do it. Her mother had not been wrong to say it. They had simply been measuring the wrong thing. She got in her car. She drove home. She had work to do.